tremendous effort over the years. I don't usually write down speeches, but we are in academia after all, so I actually wrote this down. And I think you may see why as I get through this. So, as referenced in my introduction, I've had a long history with Portland State University. As a student and an alumni, a faculty, an advisor, a volunteer, and a consultant, it's been a relationship that I believe that many American Indians can identify with. And in many ways, my history with this university parallels the relationship that the Native community has. And I was very struck with the opening, with Cornell's words about being warriors, about the struggle that we all have. I started to wonder, did he read my speech? Because that's what was in my mind when I was asked to give this talk. I am very grateful for the unique and enriching experience of my graduate education here at the School of Social Work. The mid-70s, when I attended, was an exciting and tumultuous time for American Indians. Wounded Knee and other occupations had recently occurred. Groundbreaking legislation was being passed, and funding for Indian education was available, opening many professions. For a first generation of social workers and psychologists and educators and attorneys, Portland State had one of 5 federally funded social work programs in the nation for American Indians at the time. There were 14 of us in the graduate program, another 15 in the undergraduate program, and many more at Portland Community College in a feeder program. For the first time in my life, I experienced classes with 40 American Indians, with guest speakers like Dennis Banks and Vernon Belcourt and many others. It was a unique experience to sit in a classroom with other Native people, dealing with Native issues, not having to be the only Indian sitting in the room, justifying your very existence. American Indian students at the time had to fight for legitimacy. We had to contend with open discrimination, and students even occupied the president's office on 2 occasions to protest poor treatment by the university. In those early days, ESU graduated dozens of leaders, like Anton Minthorpe and Lyndon Johannan, Luana Paul, people who would go on to bring change and healing to their communities. United Indian Students for Higher Education became a proving ground for developing leadership. Dale John, Jay LeBlanc, Joanne Joseph all come to mind. And by the way, Saturday, a memorial for Dale John, one of the founders of USU, will be held in this very room. It's at 1 o'clock on Saturday if anyone is interested. Faculty and staff, like Rose Hill, demonstrated that if you could get young Native people on campus with their families for things like cultural events, salmon bakes, powwows, that high school students would then come to the campus for recruitment events and would eventually enroll here in a joint venture between community and university. The dream was to have a beautiful place, shared by the community and PSU, as an outward and visible representation that Indian people are welcome at Portland State University. This was to be the anchor for getting Indian feet on the ground at the university, building further connections and familiarity that would bring more Indian students here. And to be the place where Indian students could gather, knowing that they had a home here at Portland State. In the same way that I mentioned, being part of those classes with all Indian students, talking about the issues of the day, being able to walk these halls with other Native students, to be able to retain your identity, to be able to retain your thought, and to discuss the issues of the day with other Native students is invaluable. We also held out hope that a center like this would be a hub of education to build new awareness of our culture and diminish the degree of discrimination that many have experienced in this place. I'm now in my sixth decade of life. I have fought on many fronts. I have provided training and education on Indian culture in hundreds of venues and served on boards and commissions that I can count, seeking to raise the awareness and gain the respect of the non-Indian world for our people. And if there is one thing that I've learned in that process, is that we live in a post-colonial society where colonial privilege is so deeply ingrained that you can count on the non-Indigenous population to oppress the American Indian. It goes on today, and it will go on in the future. And as Cornell said, we are the warriors that have to protect and defend our future generations. We are an inconvenient remnant of a failed genocide. We are a painful reminder that if you build a nation on stolen land and slave labor, you will produce a wealthy nation. Colonial powers across the world have controlled indigenous peoples in the places that they conquer by taking the land, controlling the natural resources, usurping the governments, delegitimizing thought, and taking away the children. All of this was done in this country, and all of it is still going on. But this building represents a reclaim. It is a small beachhead on the shores of non-native thought, where our thought can have legitimacy, even in a stronghold of the colonial powers worldview, academia. And as Native people, we can count on the university and its employees exercising their privilege to have short memories, to forget the vision that gave birth to this facility. And if we are not diligent, to treat this building simply as a university registry. Just as almost every Native person has engaged this institution, has had to struggle to retain their Indian identity, so do we, as a community, have to always remember to not take this building university publicly to recommit itself to living up to the name of this beautiful place, the Native American Student and Community Center. To his credit, President Eagles said that he certainly would look into the matter, and that this center represented the connection with the Indian community, both urban and reservation. We need to hold him to that. Finally, I would challenge our own Indian community, urban and tribal, to also recommit to this facility. It cannot survive without our advocacy and support. We have to continue to be warriors. We have to continue to be here for the students who come here, because that world that we live in continues to be a place that assaults the very nature of our indigenous identity. It deserves our resources and it deserves our energy. I have come to believe that the only way for our Indianness to survive in a post-colonial reality, we must firstly hold to the validity of our own culture, to our own identity. We must stand and demand, as those founding Yushi students did, to be recognized for who we are today as Indigenous people, and we must hold our post-colonial occupiers accountable and call on them now as allies to help us mitigate the harm that their oppression has done to our people. We are rebuilding, we are healing, and we need allies to do that, and we need to be able to say the difficult and courageous things that must be said to bring that to bear. This building is just one outward and visible representation of the successes that are possible when we each bring our strengths to racial healing that's so desperately needed across our nation. As we celebrate this anniversary, please let us remember that what has been done here, to have this building, is no small accomplishment. And it is one that we should all support and protect well into the future. Thank you.